The lake dried up in late summer without any warning. The water pulled back day by day, like it was ashamed of something, leaving behind cracked mud, rusted boat anchors, and finally, a staircase. None of us remembered it being there before. Concrete steps descending straight down into the earth where the water should have been. We all stood at the edge of it with that same shared feeling that had followed us our whole lives, the sense that something familiar was pretending to be new, that the world sometimes lied by omission. We joked at first, because that's what you do when dread hasn't fully arrived yet. We climbed down with flashlights and bravado, and the kind of laughter that only exists before consequences. Then, the air changed. The ground beneath the lake opened into a hallway. It was dry and warm, lit by lights that hummed as if they had never known darkness. The hallway opened into streets, not ruins, not ancient stone, but a town fully intact. Houses were painted, mailboxes stood upright, sidewalks were swept clean. It was a town buried perfectly beneath the lake, like it had just been waiting for us. We walked slowly now, like forgotten, our voices low. The place felt occupied, even though no one was outside. When we reached the first house and looked through the window, that's when everything broke. The living room, it was ours. Not just similar, not nostalgic, it was exact. The same couch, the same photo frames, the same dent in the wall from when Evan had thrown a ball to Har when he was 8. But the photos were wrong. They showed him smiling at birthdays he didn't remember, standing beside people who had never existed, growing older in a place he had never lived. We all felt it, that pull in the chest, the vertigo of seeing yourself remembered incorrectly. Maya dropped her flashlight when she saw her own childhood bedroom inside another house. It had pink walls she never had, drawings she didn't remember making, trophies she never won, all labeled with her name and handwriting identical to her mother's. Lucas tried to rationalize it. He said it was a prank, a movie set, mass hysteria, anything that fit inside the rules. But the deeper we went, the more the rules dissolved. Every street revealed another version of our lives. School hallways with lockers bearing our names. Classrooms where desks were carved with initials we had never carved. A hospital wing with our birth records, but dated years earlier that we remembered. Noah, who had always believed strength meant staying above water, felt something watching us from the end of the streets. Something patient, not hostile, like a landlord who had finally noticed unwanted guests. And the realization came slowly, then all at once. This wasn't a copy of our world. It was a branch that had grown downward instead of upward, a place where our choices had bent differently. Versions of us had gone missing long ago, and instead of disappearing, they had continued, had grown, had lived entire lives underground while we, the surface versions, walked around thinking we were whole. Deeper staircases between neighborhoods led to older versions of the town, with years stacked like sediment. The photos on the walls began to move. Faces turned suddenly as we passed, their eyes following us, recognition blooming. We started to hear footsteps behind doors, muffled voices saying our names with relief, with anger, with longing. The rules became clearer the further down we went, written in murals and etched into walls like warnings scratched by people who had learned to wait. Only one version can exist on the surface. Only one version can breathe open air. When the lake formed decades ago, it had sealed the balance, trapping the underground versions below while the surface ones forgot the cost. And now that the water was gone, the door was open again. The town beneath was waking up. The first encounter happened when an older Evan stepped into the street. His beard was unshaven, his eyes tired but familiar, and he was wearing a jacket Evan owned but had never bought. He smiled with a sadness that cut deeper than fear and said, "You finally came back." Evan felt something inside him recognize the truth before his brain could. This man was him if he had stayed, if he had never climbed out of something years ago. The others met their counterparts too, versions of us shaped by different losses, different loves, different regrets. None of them were monsters, which somehow made it worse. They were kind, tired people who had lived full lives trapped under a rule they hadn't written. The town itself seemed to pulse as the balance destabilized. Lights flickered, walls breathed, as if the place knew it couldn't support duplicates for long. The underground versions began to explain, gently at first, then desperately. The surface had always been temporary. The lake wasn't a prison, but a pause. One version must return below, or the world would correct itself violently. And correction didn't mean negotiation. It meant erasure. Cracks started to form in the ceilings above, dirt falling like sand through an hourglass. The town beneath began to flood with something darker than water, memory collapsing in on itself. Houses overlapped, faces blurred. The underground versions grew more solid as we felt lighter, less anchored, as if gravity itself was choosing sides. Arguments broke out because no one wants to volunteer to disappear. No one believes they are the extra version. Maya saw her underground self holding a child who didn't exist on the surface, a life that would be erased if she chose wrong. Noah saw a version of himself who had stayed behind to protect others and had become exactly what Noah only pretended to be. Lucas read equations scrawled on walls, showing probability curves collapsing toward singularity, proof that the universe hates redundancy. The lake above us began to refill, not with rain, but with pressure. The world trying to reseal the wound. The final choice wasn't dramatic like in the movies. It was quiet and awful and humid. The underground versions didn't beg. They simply stood aside, accepting what they had always known, that the surface versions would choose themselves. Evan realized late that the monster wasn't the town, or the rule, or the lake. It was the comfort of believing you deserve the life you have more than another version of you does. When the staircase began to collapse and the water roared back into the basin above, filling the tunnels with a sound like applause turned violent, we ran. Not because we were evil, but because survival feels like morality when you're inside it. As we climbed the final steps and emerged into daylight, gasping, soaked, the lake sealed behind us as if it had never moved, as if the staircase had never existed. The town above looked normal again, whole dot unbroken. But something was wrong. Our reflections didn't match exactly anymore. Sometimes we dreamed of memories that weren't ours, and sometimes we saw people on the shore, staring up from beneath the water, calm, patient, waiting. The final truth settled into us slowly, the kind that never leaves. The rule had not been broken, only enforced. One version of each of us now existed on the surface, but not necessarily the one that had climbed out. And somewhere beneath the lake, in a town that still looked just like ours, someone else was waking up, breathing underground air, wondering why the surface had gone quiet, wondering which version of themselves had been chosen, and knowing, with terrible certainty, that if the lake ever dried up again, the balance would demand payment once more.